If you're trying to make any kind of meaningful, effective change in your life, you've come to the right place. Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. You're listening to episode 135 of We're Talking Shift. Did you know that only about 12%, yes, 12% of the U.S. population is considered healthy? That's appalling. That is like an appalling statistic, you guys. So we talk a lot about health on this podcast, as any of you longtime listeners know, but I just feel like since things don't seem to be getting any better, at least here in the US, we just can't talk about it enough. So I have invited my friend Lauren Geertsen back on, and we're going to drop some of our favorite health practices, some do's and some don'ts, and some detox tips that we not only use ourselves, but we use with many of our clients. You may recall that Lauren was with us a couple months ago talking about her book, The Invisible Corset, and we had a fantastic discussion about the psychological abuse of the beauty industry, the diet industry, developing a relationship with your body, and tons more. If you missed it, make sure to go back and check it out. It is episode 124. Now, Lauren, who is also a body connection coach, intuitive mentor, and nutritional therapy practitioner, is going to dive in with me, and we are going to share all kinds of good stuff with you guys. Welcome back, Lauren.
Thank you, Loree. It's so good to be here again.
I'm glad to have you. We have just awesome conversations all the time about this, all things related to health and our health freedoms. And so I just could think of no better person to jump back on and just, throw up as much good stuff as we can between the two of us.
Honestly, I could geek out about this all day. So
yeah, me too. And honestly, I mean, with my family that's here living under the same roof, it's like one version or another of health is coming up daily, and we're all talking about it and venting about it and scratching our heads about it every day. So we might as well just put it out here some more on the podcast, right?
Let's do it. Yeah.
Okay. So, you heard me say only about 12% of the population is considered healthy, which is mind-blowing. So that leaves what, 88% who are not?
Yeah.
That's a lot of people.
It makes sense given that allopathic medicine is a criminal industry that's designed to make people ill. And it's like our system of medicine has been co-opted by a system of poison and poisonous thinking ever since the early 1900s. So I really think, if people are in any way interested in having a healthy mind or body or soul for that matter, it means getting away from the industry that's supposed to provide us health in the first place.
Yeah. It's really kind of crazy. And I almost jumped the gun there because I was going to share this stat with you, that another one that's mind blowing, but I'm going to save it for later. I'm going to save it for when we talk about don'ts. But yeah, when you look and you go, 70% of our population is on prescription meds, and more than half of them are on 2. And you think that, that's not normal. It's become normal for people to just assume that that's ultimately, the direction you're going to go, that you are definitely going to need some sort of medication and you are going to be suffering from some sort of health condition. And I think it's become so commonplace that people actually have come to believe that that's the normal course of action with the human body. And it's not.
It's not. My definition of health is how much a person is aligned to the divine wisdom inside of them. That body's intuitive healing wisdom, that is our direct connection to God. It's like our telephone line to God and divine healing. And what pharmaceuticals do by their very nature is distance you from that alignment, throw you out of alignment, because the whole pharmaceutical paradigm is based on silencing symptoms instead of looking at the root causes, which are mostly cultural and spiritual. And the physical root causes are actually like secondary to that.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because I think oftentimes, especially with a lot of health-centric practitioners, it's still very focused on just the physicality of it. and a lot of times that spiritual aspect doesn't come into play. And and tied in with that is the psychological aspect, the belief, your belief system. And that is such a important, massive component that gets overlooked. You're right. And it all is designed to make us think that our body is kind of like, mechanical, like a car. and,
Mhm.
and and nothing else has anything to do with it. Your beliefs or your spirituality or your intuition, your body's own wisdom. It's very much separated.
It's so backwards when we look at any indigenous culture. And I talk about this in my book, The Invisible Corset. All indigenous cultures were rooted in spiritual healing first and foremost. And the body isn't a machine, it is the mechanic herself, and it is by having that lens of reductionistic, mechanistic science as the only way to see the body, we divorce ourselves
Mhm.
from so much wisdom and so much healing potential. And
Yeah.
what's so interesting is, like I said, in all indigenous cultures, there was a hierarchy of healers. So the shamans, they had different terms in different cultures, but shaman is one term that we're very aware of. That was the individual who dealt with like spirit communication, life purpose, path, ancestral communication. They dealt with that spiritual world, and
Mhm.
they were considered the most important healers. And then below that, there were kind of the herbalists and the medicine
Mm.
people. And below that, lower down on the hierarchy, not to say these weren't important, but it was just considered not um, as primary. And below that
Yeah.
was the bone setter, who was like,
Mhm.
fixing the wounds, replacing your
Yeah.
bones if you broke something. We have
Right.
got that so reversed in our culture
Mhm.
that there's like disdain in Western culture for people like you and me who do work at that spiritual psychological level. We are the secondary people come to after Western medicine has already failed them,
Mhm.
when in
Mhm.
fact it should be the direct opposite pattern. We should be the first ones you call up.
Yeah. Yeah. First of all, how can I prevent myself from getting unwell in the first place? How should I be living? What should I be thinking and doing? And, how should I be respecting my life and my body and everything around that so that I don't end up having to deal with some form of disease or unwellness? That would be step A. Let's just not go there in the first place, right?
Yeah.
But then, you find yourself there, as many of our clients do, and it's like, okay, now what do I do? How can I get out of this, or how can I make this better? What else? And so, right, then we're trying to undo things and bring them back to a level place of I guess body harmony, body, mind, and spirit harmony and wellness.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where
Yeah.
I came from. Was I had a cataclysmic health disaster when I was like ages 14 through 18, basically on and off bedridden with a life-threatening autoimmune disease.
Hmm.
And then I came into the physical realm of healing through nutrition and supplements, and that allowed me to see, to go even deeper. What would have prevented that in the first place would have been
Hmm.
living a life that was in alignment with my body's own wisdom and values instead of my culture's wisdom and my culture's values. And
Yeah.
that is so foremost, because like if we're talking about prevention, what I tell my clients all the time is your body will eject you from a life that is not aligned to your soul. So
Mm.
if you're getting, I see this all the time. I've got women with chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, autoimmune disorders. And yes,
Hmm.
they come to me when they've already explored natural and holistic therapy in the physical realm. But their body is saying no for them because they are not saying no to the wrong life. They are not saying no to toxic relationships or the career that's zapping their soul. That is the root
Hmm.
of it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's such a good point. I have a close family member who that's exactly what happened. Just so many years and I'm talking like 15 years of high pressure and stress. And ultimately, there's what's it? It was like an ulcer, like an HP Loree. I can't remember the name of it, but it was just like, medication and trying to figure out what was wrong and, going to doctors and, well, it's not this, it's not that. And, it's just the usual course of action and nothing really works. And really what it boiled down to is her body was telling her, stop doing this, stop doing what you're doing. And this will take care of itself. But the body, it couldn't heal itself when she was completely, doing the same thing every day that was taxing it so much. And there we
Totally.
go.
And I got the perspective from Western medicine when I was young that my body was trying to kill me. I got this belief that, oh, my body is against me. I have to fight it. I have to win it. I'm in this battleground. And it sounds like your friend was in that place for about 15
Mhm.
years. But the truth
Mhm.
is, that is the body being on our side
Mhm.
and telling us the truth that we really need to hear.
Yeah.
And Western medicine and this allopathic perspective does such a disservice because it's literally silencing our savior. Like it's
Yeah.
it's like silencing the
Yeah.
messenger. And so
Right, right.
this radical shift is seeing those symptoms and that bodily distress with gratitude, in fact,
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
it's like,
Yeah.
wow, body, thank you for showing me and telling me that I need to either do differently, think differently, eat differently, live differently, believe differently,
Mhm.
whatever it may be, but it's always on that level.
Right. It's like we have a complete misperception of what the signal is. And so, we've learned that when there's any kind of discomfort, that we think the body's saying, make me feel better by going out and getting this thing, whatever that thing is from your doctor, to stop feeling like this, as opposed to, hey, I'm telling you, there's something, that you need to listen to here. And if you would receive the communication in the way that we're meant to, as you said, as a sign that maybe you need to do something differently in your life, then it can just heal itself. And that's the beauty of our bodies. I just don't think that still some with all the information out there, most people still do not get that our bodies are these amazing, miraculous, self-healing, self-detoxing organisms.
Mhm.
As if you just listen, give it what it needs, and stop giving it too much of what it doesn't need, it'll do the job for you. You don't really
Mhm.
have to jump through that many hoops
It's so
until
true.
you've put it in such a bad predicament that now you've got to dig out of a really deep hole. But even
Mhm.
then, it can still be done. It's
Yeah,
amazing.
I did it. I mean, I
Mhm.
was facing death essentially. Like it's yeah, it's
Yeah.
I'm losing track of I had a thread that I wanted to go off on and I'm forgetting it, but I'm sure I will circle back to it.
It'll come back. Yeah, it'll come back. So maybe it would be fun if we just kind of go back and forth and share some of our what we call non-negotiables, the things that we do that we just do these, and we suggest to many of our clients, we invite them to do them as well in order to reach their optimal health and wellness levels. So we figured, you know what, this is what's worked for me for decades, for my entire adult life. You share what has worked for you, and I'm sure that our listeners are going to be able to take home some things that they can do. But you guys, what I want you to get is that the things that Lauren and I are going to share, these are things that you don't just do once in a while. It's a lifestyle, just like brushing your teeth every day. You just do it. It's a non-negotiable. You just do it. And that's so key. Consistency is really key. Do you agree?
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to invite you to start if you want to share one, and we'll just kind of play back and
Yeah.
forth and see what we come up with.
Yeah, I've just got some basics really. Like
Yeah.
I noticed that American food culture is very oriented around convenience and time shortage and
Mhm.
hurry and rush. And that was something that I really believe contributed to me developing a disease in the first place, and what I see with my clients as well. So something so basic is just making a commitment every day, just like you said, brushing your teeth, to cook meals. I cook a
Mhm.
full breakfast every single day. I have some prepared lunches that I make ahead of time in my fridge. And then for dinner, I set aside that time, half an hour every single evening to prepare a really nice, very simple
Yeah.
typically, but a very nice meal for myself. And that is, I look at other people and I think that concept of allocating that time and that routine every day is very foreign. Because if you are going to eat a whole foods mm, uh, diet, and I could talk about diet all day. This was my background, coming from a place of a nutritional therapy practitioner and giving people supplement protocols and then moving into intuitive eating. Yeah, I could go off, but basically the essentials is eat your vegetables, you know,
Mhm.
eat whole locally raised meats that are healthy, eat fruit,
Mhm.
um, eat
Mhm.
as local and clean as you can, and don't be obsessive, and enjoy treats, and don't cut out major food groups. But cook as much as you can from
Yeah.
home, and you're going to have your bases covered. So
Right.
that's something that is just a non-negotiable for me, is setting aside that time every single day and cooking some whole foods. I eat very
Mhm.
simply, but it turns out delicious, because that's what happens when you have good ingredients.
Mhm. That is so similar to what we do as well. My husband and I are not breakfast eaters for the most part, so we'll cook breakfast sometimes, like on the weekend, and have like a brunch or a breakfast. But during the week, what we normally do is, like, late morning, we have a nutrition packed plant-based protein smoothie, and that just works really well for us. And I think that's an important point to make. If you're a breakfast eater and you are somebody that loves to get up and you are hungry and you want to eat breakfast, then it's important for you and you should do it. If you're not that hungry, then there, I still have people say, don't I have to eat breakfast? I hate eating breakfast. I don't want to eat breakfast. I'm like, then don't eat breakfast. That's fine. You don't have, it's not for everyone all the time. So, you have to figure out what works for you. It doesn't work for me to have a big breakfast every day, but it works for a lot of people. So I think you gotta figure that out. But the main point there is, if you're going to have something to eat, whether it's in the first thing when you get up or later in the morning, make something healthy. don't
Mhm.
don't like wait to the last minute and now you're starving, and now you're running out the door and you're running through the drive-through and getting some crappy food, or a muffin at the
Mhm.
drive-through.
Yeah,
Now
because yeah, that is really important to get your blood sugar right in the morning, because that is really going
yeah.
to set the course for the day. So
Mhm.
fats and protein are essential. Good solid smoothies that have, good quality collagen, or what be it,
Yeah.
and it
Yep.
helps, because you don't want to just like
Totally.
shoot up orange juice and cereal with skim milk. That is the worst thing to do for your blood sugar. It's going to set you off course for the rest of the day.
Yeah, it's horrible. And I mean, we did Christy and I did a whole thing on smoothies and juicing and stuff a couple months ago. And even if you're going to make smoothies or protein shakes, whatever you want to call them, there's a right way and there's not a right way. And you're right. Like in ours, there's always plant protein, there's collagen, there's avocado, so
Oh
there's
yeah.
good healthy fat
Yep.
in there, and then there's, just a ton of vitamins and nutrition. So everything we need is in there. It is a meal in a glass. And that takes me through the entire day until about 3 in the afternoon. And I'm fueled and I'm focused and I'm sharp and I'm not hungry and I don't have cravings. You know what I mean? I don't hit a 3 o'clock wall like so many people do from the food they're eating.
Hmm.
But yeah, so I like that. But again, if you're a breakfast eater, then yes, eat breakfast, but don't have cereal and juice and muffins and
Right.
right. Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, how that, muffin with egg or whatever, include, some scrambled eggs with butter on the side. It's really important that you're getting
Yeah.
those long burning fuels.
Hmm. Perfect. Yeah. Some healthy fat
Hmm.
is, I think, key as
Pasture
well.
raised butter is like the
Mhm.
best thing in the world. Go get some Kerrygold from Costco and you'll be set.
Right?
Yep.
Exactly. Exactly. And along the line of that, I will also include one of my tips is I think that people eat way more than they need to. People just simply eat because they're fueling an addiction to food, to to fat and salt and sugar, because all of that fast food and all of our processed food is designed to make you addicted to it. So
Mhm.
when you are feeding your cells, you don't get those crazy cravings. You don't feel like you have to have a snack every 90 minutes. So, one of the things that is one of my practices too, and it's not an effort, it just is natural. Very little snacking, not a snacker. I think that
Yep.
people are, it's almost like this constant thing of having to have a little something all the time. And I think that part of that is the addiction to the food. And I think that the other part of that is people are using an unhealthy way of snacking on shitty food to change their mental state.
Yeah.
So
And they don't
people use food
realize,
to change their state.
yeah, the digestive system takes about 4 hours to work through a meal. Like it
Hmm.
needs that break.
Right.
It can't regenerate fully and optimally if there is food running through it all the time. And on that
Hmm.
note, what's really ironic is that chronic dieting and weight obsession actually fuels the very pattern you're talking about of overeating, because it
Yeah.
puts our bodies and our psychology into a famine state. This is so thoroughly identified in the scientific literature that if
Yep.
people restrict with the intention of trying to lose weight and control their body size, instead of just focusing on healthy whole foods, eating to their fullness levels, looking at the other areas of their life where they're, trying to numb out and just getting healthy movement in, that dieting paradigm creates chronic overeating and snacking.
Yep. It's a vicious cycle. And I love that point you made though about needing time in between eating for your digestive system to do what it needs to do. And it's one of the other, so that brings me to one of my other things is basically almost daily intermittent fasting, which again isn't something that I have to try to do. It just comes natural. So, when you intermittent fast, I'm sure you already know this, it supports healthy immune function, and our healthy immune function is at the center of body detox, among a million other things. So when you do that, if you just stop eating, whatever time you stop eating at night, maybe for some people it's 6, 7, 8, whatever. We usually stop eating around 7-ish. We're done or close to that. Sometimes it's later, but then I don't feel like eating anything for like 14 hours. So I get up, I have my coffee, which is suppresses your appetite, and then I'm not hungry for like 14 hours. That's a fast, and it's easy because you're not trying to. It's just natural. You're just not hungry for a long time. And that works as long as when you do eat for the hours of the day that you are going to eat, you are getting something that is feeding your cells, feeding you, with good vitamins and nutrition, all of the food that you just talked about, whole foods and plant based foods and whatnot. When you do that, you don't feel like you need to eat more frequently. You don't feel like you need to eat for hours and hours. You don't get cravings. So that's one of the things that just is a natural rhythm that my husband and I have both just developed. We stop eating around a certain time, we're done. And then nobody's hungry until, 11 o'clock the next day. It's easy. It's
Yeah.
just so easy. You don't have
That's
to work at it.
It's so interesting hearing you say this, because I didn't realize my body naturally fell into that similar pattern. I come from a background of very severe disordered eating and like body dysmorphia, and that's where I started to specialize with my clients as well. So I really don't ever intentionally put any of my clients or myself on a quote intermittent fasting paradigm, any
Mhm.
kind of restricted paradigm. Um,
Yeah.
because I'm always like, how can we get to that, like reset our intuitive food wisdom? But as you're
Mhm.
talking, I'm like, oh yeah, that's where my body naturally has led me
Mhm.
to, where I finish eating around 7 o'clock. And in the mornings, I have a really thorough morning routine. I probably eat around like 9:30 in the morning. So not quite
Yeah.
as long as a fast, but I'm like, I'm not hungry until then. And
Right.
that's just,
Right.
I think also if we look at early cultures, they had very long periods of time without eating as well. So there's something to be said for that.
Yeah.
That's where the body can naturally lead us.
Exactly. And that's the whole thing. If you're what you're doing during the day when you are eating, if it's the right fuel, the rest is easy. It comes natural. You don't have to try. You don't have
Yep.
to think, "Oh, I can't do this now and I want it so bad." You don't have those feelings.
Yeah.
But like you, I didn't even realize that what I was doing was considered an intermittent fasting until I kind of learned more about it a few years ago. And I was like, I suppose I should experiment with this and, figure out blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, okay. I guess I'm already doing that naturally. So good for me. Check
Yeah.
that box.
There you go. That was easy.
But
And that's
yeah.
the other thing about when you are eating really good food without a restricted mindset and you're trusting your body, is that the food planning and preoccupation and obsession that leads to all that snacking and like pulls us
Mhm.
out of the moment, especially as women who have ever dieted, like we all know this experience. That goes away when you're focused
Mhm.
in this
Yeah,
paradigm that we're talking about. And that's so
exactly.
freeing.
It is. And I think that's another good point to make, which you made earlier, is that what you have is fairly simple when you do eat. And we're the same way. I mean, it's really, really easy. It's like a smoothie, and then it's a salad at dinner and some protein. And that's kind of it. It doesn't vary that much. But it I think that if you are someone that no matter what your diet consists of right now, if you think about it, whether you cook or eat out, whatever, you probably rotate between about the same 10 things all week, every week. You don't usually have a gigantic variety. You're not making something different 30 days, every day out of the month, right? People eat the same stuff over and over, whether it's good or whether it's not good. It's the same thing. Just like people go to the drive-through and order the same crap at Wendy's every day or McDonald's or, whatever. So I think if you just realize that if you're going to try to transition into a healthier eating lifestyle, you don't have to get, 5 cookbooks and try to make all of these exotic different meals. And, you don't have to sprout your seeds if you don't want to. I mean, you can get as crazy and as extreme as you want, but the more I think that you have to do all of these extra things, the less likely you are to do it because it's
So
overwhelming
true.
then,
It is
right?
so true. Just like,
Yeah.
what can you change in 5 minutes tomorrow? And keep that for the next 5 days and then make another little change. That's
Right.
where we see the big long-term progress.
Yeah, exactly. It's implementing those changes one step at a time and making them into your new rituals, your new
Yep.
non-negotiables, and then you just keep building slowly. And pretty soon before you know it, you've literally evolved your entire eating lifestyle into a new lifestyle, not a new
Yep.
diet, a new lifestyle, right?
Yep. Yep. Yeah. On that note, two other things that I incorporate that are free, and basically they're, 10-minute things I do every day:
Mhm.
grounding and sunshine. Like, you get
Mhm.
your vitamin grounding and your vitamin D, but there's
Yeah.
so much incredible research behind what happens when you just put bare feet on the ground. This can be concrete, grass, dirt. I just lay out in my yard with a blanket, and what it does is it anti-inflames the body. It helps release the negative charge, the stickiness between our blood cells. Like, there's a lot of research that I'm not familiar enough with to just spout off the
Mhm.
top of my head.
Yeah.
Besides
Yeah.
that, 10 minutes of this a day, completely free, no matter where you are. It is so powerful, especially for heart conditions, for normalizing blood pressure. And then, of course, just getting a good dose of sunshine. For the key here is to get it to the point that you're not burning. So for me, I am like
Right.
pale Norwegian. All my
10
ancestors
minutes
are,
max.
yeah, I can do 10 minutes on each side. So when the sun is out, because I'm in,
Yeah.
northern Washington state where it's gray and
Yeah.
rainy here, I take my vitamin D during the winter. But
Yeah.
whenever I have a sunny day, I get 10 minutes of sun on each side. And what is interesting is usually during the summer, as I can gradually increase that day
Mhm.
by day as my skin builds up tolerance, which is super important.
Mhm.
Because there's this weird thing in the skincare industry, like the beauty industry, is such a crock of BS. Like, there's so many lies that will tell you
Yeah.
you can't trust your body to do what it normally will do. Like, the skincare
Mhm.
industry says you can't trust your skin. to do what it normally
Right.
does. So here are 3 different kinds of cleansers: this exfoliant that will take off, your
Yeah.
protective oil barriers, and also you need to replenish it with hyaluronic acid and all this stuff that just can
Mhm.
disrupt long term what your skin
Mhm.
does optimally and naturally. And then on top of that, you have to put SPF on every single day. God forbid you ever get a ray of unadulterated pure sunshine, which is the vitamin and the nutrient that all of our single cells need. So,
I know.
it's crazy, but
This
that's so simple. Like, just get sunshine
it
and put your
is.
feet on the ground.
I'm so glad you brought that up. Sun is on my list as well. I love the sun. I've been a sun worshiper my whole life. I don't believe in sunscreen. And to me, it's like this whole thing about coating on layers of sunscreen every day, even if you're not going outside, but for sure if you are. I, I think, wow, God really screwed up
Yeah,
bad. I
I
mean,
know. I'm
he
sorry, but
made
that's so
like
true.
right? Billions of people since
Yeah.
the beginning of mankind have skin exposed to the sun. And wow, I don't think, as far as we know, cancer was on the scene like hundreds and thousands of years ago,
Yeah. As
right?
sun exposure has decreased and sunscreen use has increased, the skin cancer rates have gone off the charts. Like, this is not adding up. This is really purely to sell sunscreen. You have to sell a lie to sell more of these
Right.
products.
Yes, yes. Anti-aging, and anti-cancerous, and just, yeah, buy the product, coat it on. As soon as you get up in the morning, pretty soon it's going to be put it on at night before you go to bed
That's,
too,
oh
because,
my God.
the
I
rays,
wouldn't.
the rays from your clock are going to penetrate your skin and
Right.
you're going to get sick. I mean,
Yeah.
whatever. But
We're
so
not far away from
yes,
that.
I
I'm
agree
sure there's
those.
going to be like skincare products that are like, here's how to block the blue light from your screen. No, just use your
Mhm.
screen less.
I've been told that
Mm,
by I've been told that, and I'm like,
interesting.
not buying
Mm,
it.
mm-hmm.
Yes, by some a skincare specialist who said, "Oh, but," and they said, "We really want you to get some sunscreen." I'm like, "I don't believe in sunscreen," and she's like, aghast. No, say it isn't so. I was like, no, no. And she's like, well, even from, the lights in the, if you work in an office, or the blue light from your laptop. I'm like, I don't think so. I, I'll think about it, but
Yeah.
no, I just don't buy it. I just don't. Could be wrong, but I don't think so. It's been not wrong
it's
for me so
it's
far.
so crazy, this like legion of experts, whether it is in the skincare industry or the diet industry or medicine and traditional allopathic doctors, that I see so much arrogance and shock and non-curiosity and defensiveness when people present a paradigm that is completely different to what they have been indoctrinated into. There's like,
Yeah.
they don't question that the system of thought they've been taught is in order to sell a reality that sells products and keeps people distrusting their bodies.
Hmm.
It's that
Yeah.
basic. And
Yeah.
but I do have
Yeah.
hope, because I see more and more people every single day, like pharmacists. I've talked to a couple in the last 2 weeks actually, who have decided, yeah, I'm leaving my career as a pharmacist because I'm selling people poison and it doesn't feel good to my heart or soul. And they have allowed themselves to question that really big paradigm, right?
Hmm. Yeah. I've been reading more and more about the same thing. Doctors, other health practitioners, pharmacists, same thing, that their conscience, their awareness has grown, their consciences has become, for lack of a better word, up leveled about it. And it's just not sitting well with them. They're starting to see that this is not working. I mean, basically legal drug dealers,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
not to,
Enablers.
yeah, and not to condemn. I know there's a place for everything, and there is a place for certain medications for certain things sometimes, but we're talking about the extreme here. We're talking about the extreme when it's a pill for every ill, and
Yeah.
it's all about just writing prescriptions and,
Yeah.
here, take this and call me in the morning kind of thing, or take
Yeah.
this for, a few months, and, if you have any more trouble, then come see me. But
I think I have a more like a conservative approach there, because I think it's extreme to send anybody to go get a pill for depression or high blood pressure or high cholesterol, like any of those conditions, heartburn, uh, because all of these things, when you silence those symptoms, like the fix is not a pill for any of that stuff. I think it is actually a form of radical extremism that somebody would go take a high blood pressure medication instead of changing their diet, or take an acid blocker like I did when I was prescribed them when I was 14, because I had chronic and heartburn, and I had a bottle of Maalox next to my seat at the dinner table. I would just take a swig
Oh,
after every meal because it was so bad.
oh
Yeah.
my
And,
gosh.
that was a form of radical extremism that I didn't know I was practicing, instead of
Hmm.
just looking at what was turning off my stomach acid production in the first place, which is
Yeah.
chronic stress and
Yes.
anxiety.
There you go. Right there. It's people get themselves so into a mental state that they, depending on what is going on in their lives, that they put themselves in this continual flight or fight mode,
Hmm.
survival mode. Like there's constantly, lions and bears and T-Rexes at the door that are going to get you. So when you're in that state, it just shows up in different forms. The lions and bears and, T-Rexes are money issues and bill
Hmm.
collectors and, bosses and pressure, but it's the same effect in the body. So when you're in that state for a long period of time, you're going to pay. Your body is going to scream at you, and it's going to
Yeah.
manifest itself in some health condition that, to your point, you don't need a pill for. You just need to stop doing what's causing that.
Yeah.
And
And
so
this is where
time.
like subconscious rewiring is so critical. Training people out of the perceptions and values that turn us into robotic slaves,
Mhm.
basically. I mean, we have to get to that level. So this is where, like with my clients, I always use flower essences. Did we talk about this last time?
We did a little bit, which I think is amazing. Yeah, you talked about hearing them, listening, and then creating your essences out of, which I think is
Yeah.
phenomenal. Super
Yeah,
cool.
I mean, I just find they're such a powerful form of energy medicine. They're essentially acupuncture in a bottle, as an analogy most people can understand. They shift that trapped trauma and anxiety and stress that can get locked in our cells and in our
Hmm.
bodies. They shift those energy patterns. They help release those old emotions. And by doing so, it just creates this mental space, like expanded consciousness, in a way where we can integrate new beliefs, where we can better integrate new values. We feel like we have more choice and awareness instead of going into old automatic patterns. So this is
Hmm.
such a huge part of my own mental and emotional health hygiene,
Mm.
and for my clients as well, because it really helps when we're trying to do such major rewiring and to opt out of programming that's been at play in our lives from every corner of society for decades and decades. Like, potent tools, especially energy-based tools, are really, really
Mhm.
helpful there.
I love that. It's amazing, isn't it, how nature has provided so much of everything that we need, other than, being able to set your broken bones. And so much of what we need is just all growing there out in the world. We just need to figure out, how to use it and what to use it for.
Yes, and that our ancestors have been using this for ages. Our ancestors knew how to eat properly. They knew how to listen to the plants literally, and the plants would say, here's how I'm in service to humanity. This is where like Tylenol came from, and opioids,
Hmm.
because they were in use way, way, way early in human history, for painkillers, like willow
Hmm.
bark, which makes Tylenol, poppies, which makes opioids.
Right. Yeah.
And because our ancestors could intuit that, and they had that communication with nature. Same with flower essences, which have been around for, in all these different manifestations. Early indigenous people would actually gather the dew off of flowers, because it was carrying that energetic imprint, which
Hmm.
they could intuit would have certain emotional impacts. So this has all been around, and it was only when, especially when the Flexner report came out in around 1912 in the United States, that basically said all of these indigenous, herbal, natural, safe, effective things that doctors were using in the United States are now illegal. They're BS. We just have to keep it, quote,
Mhm.
scientific. So use oil-derived pharmaceuticals instead. Like,
Yeah.
this is what really I could go off
Gee.
on. So
Oh, go if you want. Go.
I mean,
It's
that was my spiel, is the pharmaceutical industry has always told us our products are the only choice.
mhm.
There are no other alternatives, and you will need our products for the rest of our life. That is such a lie. That has always been a lie. It has never been true. It is just a story that they very carefully crafted with a lot of PR and billions of dollars and bribery and lobbying and,
Yeah.
forging and fraudulent medical trials in order to create this narrative to
Mhm.
control humans.
There we go, and it's, just seems to be getting worse.
Yeah, we're reaching a pinnacle there.
Okay, you guys, I think we're going to take a pause and we're going to call this part 1. That's going to give you some time to follow up on some of these amazing tips and put them into action and digest everything. But make sure you come back next week for part 2 as Lauren and I dive into the rest of our very fantastic and interesting conversation. So stay feisty, stay healthy, make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and I will see you next week.